Good morning, everyone. It's always interesting when you stand up here in front of people, and about half of you just walked away when he was done. So I don't know if you kind of looked at my bio and saw what was going to happen and decided that this was not going to be a good presentation. I would like to say to you that I'm going to have you think outside the box today, which is an old term. The problem is that I can't get outside of this box. They won't let me out of it because they're videotaping this whole thing. Part of this presentation will be an interactive presentation in that I will be asking you some questions. And I'm hoping that you will come forward and share what happens in the actual teamwork of your organizations. The last slide that we saw of all that data referred to what? People actually doing it. How we were communicating to the administrators to tell us we need this amount of beds ready for Mondays and Sundays. That's what I heard. The problem is we don't always work together as teams. And so for the next 2 days, you will take nuggets with you away. Hopefully you'll take a nugget away that says that I learned something about putting a team together. Now this particular presentation is actually part, Sherry, of a 2-day kind of workshop. So I've sliced it for you. Hopefully we can get through it in 45 minutes. Actually, Dave, the gentleman in the back, we will get through it in 45 minutes, or he'll just cut me right off. So you have 2 days to take care of learning, and hopefully two days of taking care of winning out at the tables when you leave this particular place. What I'd like to do then is to kind of take you on a journey right now. The first part of this presentation. Dave?
Go up to slot 28, you can exit Sierra, ground point 7.
0.7, 528.
Tax 1549, runway 4, let's take off.
Texas 1549, clear.
49. Eagle 4718, LaGuardia, runway 4, position, hold traffic on land 31.
Position on runway 4, Eagle flight 4718.
Piedmont 4203, clear to land 31 and 36012, traffic hold on 4.
Clear to land 31, Piedmont 4203.
Tax 1549, contact no departure, connect.
Good day. Texas 1549, 700, climbing 5,000.
Cactus 1549, no departure to contact, I maintain 15,000.
Maintain 15,000, Cactus 1549.
Every day.
New York, John 2760 is 5,000, turning your right to 150.
Showing 2760, climb maintain 10,000.
10,000, turning 2760.
Cactus 1549, turn left lane 270.
Say This is Cactus 1539. Hit birds through lost thrust on both engines, returning back towards LaGuardia.
Okay, you need to return to LaGuardia. Turn left heading up 220.
220.
Tower, stop your departure. It's got emergency returning. It's 1529. He bird strike. He lost all engine. He lost the thrust in the engines. He's returning immediately.
Cactus 1529, which engines?
He lost thrust in both engines, he said.
Got it.
Cactus 1529. If we can get it for you, do you want to try to land 1313?
We're unable. We may end up in the Hudson.
Charlie 2760, turn left 070.
070, turning 2760.
Hi, Cactus 1549. It's going to be left traffic to runway 31.
Unable.
Okay, what do you need to land? Cactus 1549, runway 4 is available if you want to make left traffic to runway 4.
I'm not sure we can make any runway. What's over to our right? Anything in New Jersey, maybe Teterboro?
Okay, yeah, off your right side is Teterboro Airport. Do you want to try to go to Teterboro?
Yes.
Teterboro, Empire, actually, LaGuardia departure guy, emergency inbound.
Hey, got
Cactus 1529 over the George Washington Bridge, wants to go to the airport right now.
wants to our airport. Check. Does he need assistance?
Yes, it was a bird strike. Can I get him in for runway 1?
Runway 1, that's good.
Cactus 1529, turn right 280, you can land runway
Right.
1 at Teterboro.
We can't do it.
Okay, which runway would you like at Teterboro?
We're going to be in the Hudson.
I'm sorry, say again, Cactus? All right. Charlie 2760, contact New York 126.8.
26.8, Joey 27.6.
Cactus 1549, radar contact is lost. You also got Newark Airport up at 2 o'clock in about 7 miles. Eagle 5 4718, turn left bank 210.
210, 4718. I think he said he was going in the Hudson.
Cactus 1529, Houston. Cactus 1529, if you can, you got runway 29 available at Newark, will be 2 o'clock in 7 miles. Eagle 5 4718, climb maintain 2000.
Okay, 1000 and 5 at Toledo.
Eagle 5 4718, I'm sorry, I missed that. Say again.
And we're up to 12,000 to Idiot Head.
Okay, thank you. Eagle 5 4718, turn left 220.
How many people have seen that before? YouTube, places like that. How many people know any individuals that were on that flight? No one, huh? What was your reaction to that? Anyone? I heard a wow. What was that? Yeah. Captain Sullenberger stayed calm. Now, who knows the outcomes of all that? I'm sure we all do, right? They all got on the, actually, there's a slide in there and it shows them all standing on the wings getting ready to get off that plane. Not the way I would choose to get off that plane. Now, how many individuals flew here to be here at this conference? Raise your hands, all right? Makes you kind of think, right? Of the teamwork that's behind that. You are all in emergency room departments where any given day things change on the moment. Now, this is more of a dramatic approach that happens here. We're going to have another video in a moment that'll show you a kind of contrast to this. It is maybe not as dramatic, but almost as impacting. For what I've taken for you today is the ability to take another industry, try to look outside of who you are in your departments, to begin to pull together what it means to be a team, to work together so that the outcomes will be great. Can you see the time events that are here? It seemed like that video was quite long, did it not? It was actually only about 6.5 minutes long, from the time of takeoff to the time of landing. But you also saw that there were much more than just the captain making decisions, was there not? He may have written the book and been able to go out on the speaking tours, and he's a marvelous man if you've ever heard him or interacted with him. But there were flight attendants. Second Officer Siles was there as well. You saw the talk back and forth. The folks up in the tower. But who got them off the wings? It was the best place to land because New York happens to have what? An entire fleet of people that could come out there and get them. Now let us go and see a place or an event relative to the airline industry that did not have a good outcome. Dave?
On a dark December night in 1972, 3 able-bodied and experienced pilots flew an L-1011 into the Florida Everglades after becoming distracted by a burnt-out light bulb. It sounds implausible, but crew preoccupation with minor mechanical hitches and an associated failure to monitor the instruments is a common cause of accidents. This disaster also illustrates some other recurring problems, like the failure of captains to act as leaders, make decisions, set priorities, and delegate responsibilities, shortcomings which are compounded by unassertive and complacent crew members.
That's right. It's got to be a fault.
A simulator reenactment of the final 8 minutes of this flight shows how all these ordinary human failings led to a complete breakdown in teamwork and ultimately to the deaths of 99 people.
I'm in charge, read Eastern 401, just turned on final.
Eastern 401 heavy, continue approach to 9 left.
Continue approach, roger.
Actual airline pilots play the parts of the ill-fated crew. The dialogue is taken from the cockpit voice recorder and altered only to remove or change expletives and names. Certain omissions have been made to shorten the elapsed time.
Now I'm going to try it down one more time.
Eastern Flight 401 is on final approach to Miami International, runway 9 left. The nose landing gear indicator has failed to illuminate, so the crew cannot tell whether the gear is extended and locked.
You want me to test the lights or not? Yeah, check it. Watch your seat back.
Doug, it could be the light. Could you jiggle the light?
It's got to come out a little and then snap in.
I'll put them on. Up to 2,000. You want me to fly, Doug?
What frequency did he want us on?
28.6.
I'll talk to him. All right, approach control Eastern 401. We're right over the airport here and climbing to 2,000 feet. In fact, we've just reached 2,000 feet, and we've got to get a green light on our nose gear.
Eastern 401, roger. Turn left heading 360, maintain 2,000. Vectors to 9 left final.
Left to 360. I think it's above the red one. Yeah, I can't get it from here. I can't make it pull out either. We got pressure? Yes, sir, all systems. Put the damn thing on autopilot.
All right.
See if you can put that light out. Well, you got to push the switch just a little bit further forward. Now turn it to the right a little bit. No, I don't think it's going to fit. Hey, get down there and see if that damn nose wheel's down.
Okay. You got a handkerchief or something so I can get a little better grip on this? Anything I can do with? This damn thing just won't come out, Doug. If I had a pair of pliers, I could cushion it with that clean.
The captain has neglected to divide up flying responsibilities. Everyone is absorbed by the crisis, so they don't hear the audio alert announcing a change in altitude.
Hell with this. Go down and see if that red line is lined up down there. Don't screw around with that 20-cent piece of light equipment. Eastern 401, I'll go out west just a little further if we can here and see if we can get this light to come on.
All right.
The autopilot has somehow become disengaged. The plane is slowly descending, and nobody is paying any attention to the altimeter.
It's always something. We could have made schedule.
Well, we can tell if the damn gear is down by looking down at the indices.
An emergency landing with a possible nose gear problem is neither very risky nor all that unusual. It's an option the captain could be preparing for now.
It's got to be a faulty light. Doug, this damn thing just won't come out.
All right, just leave it there.
Easton 401, how are things coming along out there?
The controller's inquiry is too vague for the crew to realize he's asking about 401's surprisingly low altitude.
Okay.
180.
Hey, we did some of the altitude here.
What?
We're still at 2,000, right?
Hey, what's happening here?
Look at the time between when they first noticed that there was something wrong with the altitude and when they hit the ground. In that 8 seconds, those two pilots, both of them, were so removed from their primary job of flying the airplane that they couldn't do a thing. They didn't reach up and grab the yoke and change the pitch or the roll of that aircraft 1 degree. That's how removed they were from their primary job of flying the airplane.
Does anybody know anyone that was on that flight? If there was, my condolences to the families. Essentially, there you have two situations, right? Same emergency kind of situation existed, but the teams acted a little differently. First of all, let's do a little compare and contrast here. Anyone want to give some of the highlights of why things were different from one flight to the other? The team captain, anybody want to respond to that? Just shout it out.
Well, the captain on the flight that went to the Hudson was very clearly in charge. You know, when they gave him a choice, okay, come back to LaGuardia, and he felt that he couldn't do it, can't do it. You know, he's very decisive in his communication and his decision making. Whereas, didn't you? I still was kind of confused on the one that went down. Who was the captain? You know?
Yeah, who was in charge there? So you definitely had somebody that was in charge. But he had a number of folks around him, very intelligent, very veterans as well, trying to watch what's going on there. And the outcome was completely different. Thank you, Sherry. Anyone else? Please. Confusion of roles, right? Excellent point. How did we see that? We saw that in that it looked like everyone on the second flight was what? A mechanic, did it not? On the first flight, you actually saw the conversations going back and forth between all the teams, including who else? The other pilots in the sky. Did you hear that? Where they were talking about what they were observing and what was going on. Now, go ahead.
Yeah. She's saying they didn't look at any other options. They were just trying to fix the light that was broken, right? Anybody had this in your house? Everyone's fighting over the remote controls to the television, how to get it to come on, and no one walks over and just turns the full thing on, losing sight of what the task is at hand. Everyone playing and fixated on the technology.
You could tell Sherry likes this, don't you? That is absolutely true. What else besides kind of what the objectives are? Do you not all get caught up in what? Press gainy. Come on, tell me what you get caught up in. You know how your day's going to go from the time that, for your clinicians, from the time that you walk from the parking lot, right? Before you even enter the buildings that you're going in. How do you know that? Pardon? Ambulances. You saw the ambulances there? My guess is you saw whose car was there. Right? Yeah, well, now you're kind of nodding and waking up. You saw who else was going to be part of your team for that day. And you can almost decide whether it's going to be a good day or a bad day. Whether we're going to have good outcomes, because what we deal with is chaos most of the time, right? or we're going to have bad outcomes because this person in charge potentially is doing what? Focusing on the red light. But who knows what that red light is in that particular person's mind? You do, because you have to try to work together as teams. Now, over the next series of slides, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 12 nuggets that you can take back with you. You can't use them at the gaming tables, but you can take them back to your team and say, this is what I learned in that short 45 minutes. I had the impact of watching these flights. Are there any pilots in here? There's got to be a couple. Nobody? Oh, yes, ma'am, go ahead. What did you think of the reaction?
I thought it was horrible.
You thought it was horrible. Both of them?
No, the first one was great. Very clear communication.
Okay. Actually, I would have been sad to be on either one of the flights. The people that, the landing, the outcomes. Remember, we're always talking about outcomes, all right? And that's what the airline industry looks at, just like the emergency room does. What are the outcomes? Because they're both in situations where death is not the outcome we want, okay? But they both work together as teams. So let's look at what they do. They get into the crew resource management approach. My question to you is, within your institutions, within your organizations, can you change the CRM around to talk about how you can get into your own arrangement of working at teams? Who goes to retreats? You all? Nobody? Do you just kind of show up and have wishful thinking when you're at your organizations? I mean, who has, I know what you got. You got conferences, right? Within your own organizations. You have committees. You're on 1,000 committees. Usually they always come to the ED folks or to be on the committees, right? Because actually you're very good thinkers and you know how to think outside of this particular box. My suggestion to you is to try to create something like this to work with teams within your organization. Because you're all dealing with time-stressed issues. And this is not only in the ED department, but also when you get up to the floors. Now, in my 25-year career, I've been everywhere. There's not a department I have not worked in or consulted with. And most of them I've put scrubs on and been in there and understand what they're like. And let me tell you, the folks on the floors are complaining about you guys down in the ED or up on the ED or wherever you're at. And the only communication piece is sometimes just that phone call. That doesn't happen within the airline industry. What they try to do is actually sit through all the issues that come about and to put together a training program. You saw that at the end of the last video, where they actually took, that video doesn't exist in YouTube, by the way, the second one. That's an actual training device that they use to teach about the red button. Now, many of you function as a team, and you know who your leadership is, you know who nurses are, you know who the patients are, you know who ambulatory situation is. But do you ever come about together to work through what it means to deliver those particular outcomes? The airline industry does. Now, how did they do that? Here are your nuggets. Simple consultant ease here, all right? Define your environment, all right? Define your team training approaches. I didn't see one hand go up as far as team training is concerned. I find that a little hard to believe, that they haven't pulled you aside and worked together. Anyone experience that?
Not in retreat, but we do it in daily training.
You do it in daily, how do you do that in daily training? Just share a little bit.
We do mock codes for
Okay.
units, and part of that is part of crew resource management, delineation, role delineation, and then you go through the scenarios.
And then you kind of work together, monitor personalities, things that are going on with that. Anyone else do, you have the mock training, very specific to, I assume what I just heard, a crash situation there. All right, all right. What about for some of the more mundane stuff? See, we always get excited. What we heard about the data before is that the patients that are coming to our ED are not necessarily the ones that are in these major trauma situations. How do we deal with that? Anyone? Okay. What works well within your organization based upon teamwork? Do you have who has good teamwork? Raise your hand. Oh my God, who has bad teamwork? That's how I earn a living. No. I would say to you right now is to look at what your challenges are. One challenge that you face in your organization, whether it's CPOE training, which you heard from the prior speaker, to any of the other particular situations that have. Now, how many people have seen teams evolve, leave, move through, change? You're constantly changing. Aren't the personnel different? Have you set up any standards within your organization that allow people? These are standards away from the clinical. See, how many clinicians are in here? Raise your hands. Yeah, see, the majority of your clinicians, we know what we're doing. We know the patient situation. But we have to understand that there's an environment outside of that that is much larger. See that picture that's there? I always like doing this because I take my family with me wherever I go, including my wife that's come for this trip as well, Sherry. Those individuals that are in that picture are two-time state champions. The one holding the trophy is my son. The first year they were the New York Yankees. They didn't need a team. They had the capability. They had the best runners in the world. Just like you have the best clinicians, right? You're all good at what you do. But then people graduate, things change. People needed to take up different roles, which was discussed before. And they ended up doing it again because they could take what they learned the first year in working together as teams and then growing it to be able to do it again. And I'm quite proud of that. But watching that as an outsider, I could see how they built up training programs. They communicated them to the new runners that were coming on board, because two of them were freshmen. They were able to define what is teamwork and what it would take to be exceptional team players. Within your organization, how many times does the word teamwork come into play? Anyone? Every day or no? Almost. See, there are some organizations that look at this as a more important, critical piece. Thank you for that insight into the mock development there. Now, we do that. Most of us don't come together as teams until what? We know that the Joint Commission's coming around, right? And then what do? Everything's up on books somewhere, right? Or somebody from the outside is coming to observe us. I would have to say that every day that a new patient or an existing patient enters your particular units, you have a new observer, and they watch very closely what's going on. So here are some of the key building blocks that I'd like to take with you. Building trust. There were trust amongst probably both flights. All right? I'd have to give that to both flights, to compare and contrast. The second piece is response when somebody works counter to the team. Again, we saw the fallout happening in the second one. The pilot moved away from being the leader, which was pointed out before, to kind of getting involved in the nitty-gritty of what was going on. And essentially, nobody was looking at, I'll call it the dashboard, to see what was going on. Somebody wasn't seeing the vision, wasn't seeing the macro environment. There are not many administrative people in here today. I saw we did a little survey at the beginning. That's a shame. Because part of this conference was supposed to be geared to building up teams, to bringing teams together to look at the next 24, 48 hours of information and to try to form some cohesion there. Meaningful feedback. When we did the mock, and sorry to pick on you, do you then keep notes of how things went?
Not really. We don't keep documentation of it, but there is feedback discussion at the end. There's self-critique of the...
Excellent. Self-critique. Does anybody else do anything like that? Interesting. The self-critique, you saw the data. We can put data together out our data. But kind of thinking of us as personnel, working together as teams, knowing who has limitations and who has strengths, we kind of miss all that. That's a shame. Open team communication and how to preserve it. I think we struggle with that. Dave, let's show them a little communication that needs to happen.
Das hier ist mein Sektor. Das hier ist das wichtigste Gerät des Küstenwächters. Das Gerät und das Gerät. Überlebensradar.
Mayday, Mayday. Hello, can you hear us? Can you hear us? Can you... Over. We are sinking. We are sinking.
Hello? This is the German Coast Guard.
We are sinking. We're sinking.
What are you thinking about?
Yeah. I got one group in this whole conference room that's actually doing training in communication. Isn't that what happens? That happens too often. It happens on a professional level. There's 3 levels here. A clinical level, because we know when the most patients are most jeopardized when we pass the baton, right? And the 3rd level that I see an awful lot is on the personal level. So I would say to you, I would challenge you to start setting up some type of small team building situations and build them around the mock CPR, build them around how you take care of the elderly patient. I don't care where you get it from, but just do something like that. But here's the kicker in all of this. You need to communicate that upstairs and across the entire horizontal world. Because you have departments that get cut off from you. They become bottlenecks. You've worked through this before. Okay, who's doing Six Sigma? Lean Sigma. Come on, guys. You're the only one doing anything in this place. No, I see some folks in the back. Nobody's gotten involved in any of that? Yes, sir.
I'd suggest if you want that to happen, in our experience, it's not until senior leadership gets involved.
Senior leadership. Okay. And that's what disappointed me, all right? So for you, what I would say, if you could get a hold of this videotape, which they're doing, here's a little nugget for you, and just send it to your senior leadership and say, look at this. This gentleman came into our conference for 45 minutes, showed us nice pictures of his son, but then said, listen, we need your input, that senior leadership driving it, to allow that to happen. After 25 years, I'm always sorry to hear that. But to defend the senior leadership, they're always looking at the kind of macro environment. They will definitely come and talk to you about Prescania, will they not? Okay? That's when you grab them, I guess, and say, listen, I'm not complaining, but I think we need to have this. If you want to have these outcomes, these throughputs a little bit better, this is the direction to go. Because you saw the communication. I would say that that's exactly what happens between the ED sometimes and what I call affectionately Mahogany Row, all right? It's down the hall somewhere. Define the interpersonal skills and the critical to team building. Some of your leaders may not necessarily be good team players. We give them the leadership because of what? Because of the clinical competence mostly. I am a nurse. I can tell you through my nursing career what they looked for is the most competent nurse and kept promoting you away from the clinical setting. It's a shame that that happens. It doesn't always happen that way. If you really want to focus on the clinical side of nursing care, that's a direction to go. It even happens that way with physicians, by the way. So those physicians that are here, you kind of get promoted away from the activity. And hopefully we don't forget from where we came from. Team decision making and problem solving. Again, trying to put together those simple exercises to allow that to happen. Let's move on. What I think we get caught up in is the following. Any Malcolm Gladwell fans in here? All right? In his book, Blink, it's essentially cognitive decisions. We do it like this. Now, he actually has a point and a counterpoint within his book of whether it always works. But we're so trained in doing this, we actually bring it to our team situations, and it doesn't work. Because what we think we can interpret, because we can see a person coming in, you guys already, according to this book, you guys already decided when I stood up here for the first 5 minutes whether this was going to be good or bad. And from when half of you walked out to get coffee and half of you came back in, I guess I didn't want to stand up here. No. You make those decisions. You're actually trained to do that, but you're not necessarily trained to be team players. In that little picture of my son that I showed you, there were 2 superstars on that team. It's like playing with the New York Yankees at one time. They were just unbeatable. Trouble is, they couldn't really talk to the younger folks to do that. They couldn't transfer this super ability, this clinical competence, this running techniques to the individuals that were coming along that were just looking at them saying, how do I get to where you are? You get there by running, all right? I mean, they don't want to hear that. You get there by understanding, by training, by knowing about injuries, things like that. And my son ended up being one of the trainers to do that. So you transfer that knowledge set. You just don't quickly decide, as in this particular book, what happens in organizations. These are the basic building blocks of training, teamwork, procedures. We saw them in the cockpit. The pilots, the flight attendants, everyone within your organization to have both good outcomes and bad outcomes. The training helps build good morale. For I have to challenge you in that the talent pool that you'll be pulling into your organization will continue to do what? Shrink and shrink. With the average age of a nurse now, about 52 years old, we have to move it up a little bit. Physicians wanting to do what? Retire. There's a shortage there. Keeping those individuals will take 2 things, in my opinion. The technology to support them. I see you all kind of like texting back and forth. Must be a good presentation. You're just kind of sending things around. And the other thing, besides the technology, is the team building and training so that you keep them within an organization. Eventually, this recession will go away, and all the influx of people that we saw having licenses, again, I don't mean to pick on the nurses, I just know what it's like doing that. You come back, and then you go out. Will change again. So in order for your organization to look at being the best, and that's what I strive to develop, you will have to look at creating these team environments. As you can see there by that quote, essentially we get back to the communication. Communicate to what you have learned in here, up the ladder to your administration, but I would actually say to dilute it amongst your entire organization. Those are all the things those boys won. It was one amazing ride. Now that's my personal achievement through my son, but you all have organizations such as this that will be looking at rewards and things of that nature. Again, to do this takes an ongoing development of that competence in team building, not just in the clinical things that you do, not just in the technology that you bring to bear, but probably the third leg of the stool, which is the personnel that have to go to deliver the care. Within the airline industry, the CRM is there. I would take that into your own organizations. It exists out there. Google it. You'll see it. You'll be able to bring concepts to your organization. Take the lead yourself. Circle this page, one page in this whole presentation. Take it back to your organization and say, hey, how can we build a team? And this isn't just when you do the transition between one shift to the other or handing off the baton, but actually making a formative approach to allowing this to happen. There is a piece that we do, which is physician relationship management, because as the team that we saw, remember the Navy comment I had when I said why they were successful? They were just standing out on the wings. There's a chance that they could be drowned or whatever, but other people came. I think it's the macro environment within your organizations that is there as well. Who has reached out to talk to the nursing homes? Who has reached out to talk to hospice? Who has reached out to talk to the physicians in the community? Who is working with EMS to allow certain things to change within the team? A very broad spectrum. Team leadership, mutual performance, patting on the back. You've seen all these things before. There in that small picture, you can see some of the results of that. Again, you're looking at that nugget or that small piece of cheese. I'm hoping that I gave it to you this morning, because eventually you can divide right through all that stuff and get to where you want to be. I have 2 minutes left. Any questions? And it went by like that, didn't it? Yes, sir. Yes. Yeah, I'm going to take all of what you said, and I did hear it, to say that you are essentially experiencing different flashing red lights. Whether it, and to try to, then your attention focuses on that, and you miss this whole kind of approach to take. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. There's some work. We were referenced the Time magazine article. There's an article in Forbes that talks about emergency physicians. Recently, as much as December, January timeframe, where the physicians were actually gearing up their clinical approach based upon Press-Ganey scores, the satisfaction of the patient, whether they were admitted or not, based upon that. we were looking at those red lights rather than seeing they become the focus of our attention versus this whole team building, which we did before. I'm over by a minute, but I'm available as well over the next 2 days. Any last comments or questions? I thank you, and hopefully when you get on that plane to go home, you'll have confidence. And oh, by the way, I plug my headphones, and they'll let you do this, into the seat that allows you to listen to what's going on. And when I start hearing about blinking flash red lights, I start getting a little panic. No, it doesn't happen. So, thank you.
Thanks
Good luck.
very much, Lawrence.